why is the bishop coming? Do we do something wrong? No, the bishop is here because I invited her. And I cannot say enough nice things about her. But most of all, I've appreciated her leadership on this conference. She is exactly the bishop we needed for the Northern Illinois Conference in a time where it's got to be really hard to be a bishop. With all that's going on with our churches throughout the country. And I am glad that despite all the stuff that's been going on in our denomination, she has kept her message clear that we are here to make disciples and that we should not lose sight of that mission. And so I am pleased that she has continuously told us that this is what we're about. You have heard me say how hard it must be to be a politician. Well, I think it must be that much harder to be a bishop, because you not only have a lot of people you got to please, you've got to do it like Jesus would. And who actually wasn't always that pleased with everybody. But nevertheless, I am so glad that she is here. I hope that your hearts will be touched by her message today. And so I'd like to ask you to please stand for the reading of today's scripture lesson.
This is taken from Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 8 through 17. Take care that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep God's commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. When you have eaten your fill, have built fine houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks have multiplied, and your silver and gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then do not exalt yourself, forgetting the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, an arid wasteland with poisonous snakes and scorpions. He made water flow for you from flint rock, and fed you in the wilderness with manna that your ancestor did not know, to humble you and to test you, and in the end to do you good. Do not say to yourself, my power and the might of my own hand has gotten me this wealth. This is the word of God for the people of God. Amen. You may be seated. It's good to be here today and to be a part of this worship service. And I enjoy the Casey family very much. This is their daughter, who's a member of our annual conference, but am pleased for the work and the ministry of the Chandler United Methodist Church. So thank you for all that you do and the ways in which you do it to serve Christ in this community. A couple of years ago, a friend of my husband and myself from Germany came to Chicago to visit. Now, we hadn't really seen him but a time or two in the last 40 years when we were in school in Europe together. But, you know, Facebook is a great thing in that regard. You know, we had sort of connected and we kept in touch. I'd seen him a time or two in the various places, but all of a sudden he Facebooked me and said he was coming to Chicago. And the reason that he was coming to Chicago was because one day he was listening to the radio, and on the radio they were advertising some airline company that was starting a direct flight from the city near him to Chicago. And they would give a free passage to whoever sort of won this contest. All you had to do was call in and give them your contact information. So maybe like you and maybe you're like me, I never really won anything like that, nor had he. But he called in, gave him the contact information, and then one day when he wasn't really thinking about it and sort of forgot all about it, he got a call that he had won this free flight from the city near him to Chicago. Well, it wasn't just the free flight, it had a few other perks to it. So one evening he came to the West Loop where we live, and we had dinner, and he was telling us all about it. He said, you know, not only was it a free flight, but it was first class. And they gave you all this food and drink. It was too much. It was just too much. And then when they got to Chicago, they took him down to one of the big hotels on Michigan Avenue, and he and his young adult son were given their suite of rooms, you know, several sitting rooms, 2 bedrooms, several bathrooms, and a great view of the lake, and he said, it's too much, it's just too much. They'd gone out for Chicago pizza, they'd given him this huge pizza. It's too much. So he was just so overwhelmed and feeling kind of full, so I suggested to him that we split the eggplant parmesan at this restaurant, because I had actually had 5 servings off of it once. And so when they brought it, it was the same response. This is too much. It's just too much. You know, I have chuckled so many times since Gerhardt's statement, it's too much. It's just too much. Because I really think that it is the mantra or the statement that we would all do well, especially in this week of Thanksgiving, but probably even more so beyond it, as we encounter so many of God's blessings. I know life isn't always great for all of us, whether it's in our nation, our world, whether it's in our community, whether it's in our schools, our workplace, our church, at home. But this is the season to remember all that God has done for us. It's just too much. It's just too much. Well, I would say Gerhard his disposition is that of gratitude. It's kind of his default. And when I think about it, he must have had no expectation about what this trip was going to be. Because I think our expectations are really what cause us to have a grateful heart or not. And that our expectations affect our emotions and our moods far more than we realize. If you're really feeling bummed out, sometimes it's because of our expectations. You know, you make that great pie for Thanksgiving, and you're hoping everybody's just going to say, oh, thank you so much. Thank you for making that pie. We're so glad you actually cooked the turkey. Thank you, thank you. And what do? They gobble the thing up before you even get a piece. It's our expectations that sometimes cause us to forget. Now, you know, Moses, the whole book of Deuteronomy is kind of his last words to the people of Israel as they go into the promised land. And in these words, it's kind of my way of putting it, but, you know, it's sort of like, okay, I get it. When you were in slavery, you weren't the happiest folks around. And you grumbled and complained, and when you went into the wilderness, you grumbled and complained because there wasn't food, there wasn't water, and then there was just the same old meat that you got time after time after time. I get it, when it wasn't so great, you weren't the happiest people around. You didn't have a disposition that went towards gratitude. But you know, that's not what this passage is about. This passage is, but when you go into the promised land, don't let your affluence, don't let your accomplishments, don't let your abundance that is multiplied time after time, because I know you people, you're going to do well. Don't let that be the cause of your grumbling and your complaining and forgetting about what God has done for you. Doesn't it seem like perhaps what we all need to remember at a time of Thanksgiving? Again, I know life isn't always great. we are, even in our accomplishments, even in our successes. You could be the most handsome or beautiful person in your whole family and all around you, but you didn't come by it on your own. Like some people say, we're all like turtles on a stump. If you see them there, you know somebody put them there. Even if you're the most beautiful or handsome, somebody got you good dental care. Even if you're so smart, somebody did multiplication tables with you. We're all like stumps. They're all like turtles on a stump. And that alone should cause us to think about who put us there, how we got there. Well, I think in our culture today, and in all of our institutions, and in so many ways, even in our families and relationships, we're losing that disposition towards gratitude. Less and less we default to it. And we might say, but there's so much wrong. And that's what I like about some of the hymns, too, of Thanksgiving, which I appreciated singing this morning. Now thank we all our God with hearts and hands and voices, who wondrous things has done, in whom the world rejoices. Beautiful words. But do you know that it was written in the 17th century in Germany, right after the 30-year war? And all these refugees had gone into the city, and it was ripe for the plague. There wasn't enough food. It caused, of course, the spread of the disease, and people were falling left and right. And there was one pastor left by the name of Reverend Martin Renkert. He buried his own wife, he buried his own loved ones, and he kept burying the people that were dying all around him, trying to provide any kind of comfort he could. And so when the war was over, it was decided that they needed to have a day of Thanksgiving. And he penned these words, and we'll sing them later in the service. Could we have written those words? But even in our own national history, think about, Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims and all of that. They had a day of Thanksgiving because they had survived a year of hardship, death, disease, cold, hunger. And so they gathered to give thanks to God. Abraham Lincoln issued the first proclamation for a Thanksgiving Day at the height of the Civil War. Yes, there were times that some of us need to remember worse than anything we know. As a country came to civil war. And so he asked everybody to give thanks and to pray for those widows and orphans, sufferers and mourners, and to be thankful that no other nation had attacked us. To be thankful in the midst of it. That's a disposition of gratitude. And we take it so casually as we gather around our abundant tables. And as we grouse and carry on about so much in our lives, remember, it's too much. It's just too much what God has done for us. But gratitude is not the end of the line. Gratitude, to feel gratitude, it makes you happy. You can read all kinds of stories or studies, of how gratitude actually, boosts your immune system, and it helps you to feel better and happier and all of that, but it's not just for us and how we feel. Gratitude is a pass-through. It passes through us to others in the form of generosity. Generosity. Yes, this could be a stewardship sermon. Generosity is more than money. And in our world, in our culture, in our families, in our churches, in our communities, generosity should first and foremost be about our spirit. Just like you got a sense of Gerhardt's spirit. He had a spirit of generosity too. Generosity actually reminds me of that passage that says, "Judge not that ye be not judged. For the measure you get, or the measure you give, rather, is the measure you get." See, judge not doesn't just mean to condemn someone. It means to have a generous spirit towards someone. Over and over again, I find that all of us default to looking for and assuming the worst in whatever somebody has done. Oh, well, you know why they did that? Oh, well, he must have been thinking, she must have been thinking, she's just trying to fill in the blank. I call it malattribution. You assume the worst of somebody else. What happens in malattribution is that it begins to erode the trust that we have, even in the most foundational institutions of our lives that we still rely on. When we have malattribution about the teacher or the superintendent or the principal or whatever, we're eroding the foundation of trust we have in that institution. Does that mean it's perfect? No, it never has been. As opposed to finding out more and building it up. Malattribution, in so many ways, is really causing us to experience this erosion of trust that will ultimately harm all of us. Malattribution. But a spirit of generosity is that one that, in a sense, just you open your heart to someone, even somebody you can't understand, and they will be at your Thanksgiving table. Oh no, I'm not just talking about those people out there. A spirit of generosity means you're curious about why somebody thinks or acts or believes the way they do, so you ask them. A spirit of generosity means that you're willing to give of yourself over and over again. A spirit of generosity means you will forgive. You know, the buzzword these days is vulnerable. A spirit of generosity means that we're vulnerable. We allow somebody in, and we're willing to go out of ourselves to somebody else. A spirit of generosity will build our relationships where they are broken. A spirit of generosity will build our institutions where they're struggling. A spirit of generosity will build your church. Oh, did you know you could have all the techniques and gimmicks of hospitality or whatever to get people in your doors? But if they don't sense a spirit of generosity, it doesn't matter. You see, this is the real kicker. People can see in us, in our eyes, whether we have a spirit of generosity or not. So remember the mantra. You know, Moses had 3 words used over and over and over again in Deuteronomy. Remember, listen, and rejoice. Remember what God has done for you. Where the helpers are in the midst of a disaster, as Mr. Rogers used to say. To remember what's good. To remember how you got here. And then to listen. Listen's not a passive word. It actually means more like practice. So this is where that mantra comes in. Check your expectation when you're feeling a little crabby. Remember. And most of all, you know, it's so hard to do it by ourselves. Mostly when we're feeling a little crabby due to our expectations being too high or just the wrong expectations, we just begin to spiral downward, don't we? We need each other. I was reminded of this many years ago when we lived in Ohio. Thanksgiving was usually at our house. And I was at a church for 13 years, and we owned our own home during that time. And it was a fairly small house. We had redone it, and, so there was a lot of open space on the first floor. But about 95% of the time, I loved that house. It wasn't too big, but about 5% of the time, it was too small. So Thanksgiving, if just the family, the immediate family came, 9 people, you could do 9. But one Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law, bless her heart, she kept inviting stray people to the table. And they were tall people. So I was beginning to feel a little full. And then, in that last 15, 20 minutes before you put the food on the table, basically I think the food for Thanksgiving was easy to make, and some of it you can make ahead of time. It's not that bad, but the last 15 to 20 minutes, that's the kicker. Because you're trying to get the turkey out, somebody to carve it, you're trying to get the potatoes mashed and keep them hot. In fact, you're trying to keep everything hot. That's the hardest part about Thanksgiving, so that it's hot when it's on the table. So it's this tense time. So all of these people are gathered in the kitchen, just kind of hovering, because that's the place to be. And then it's that 15, 20 minutes, and I'm just feeling a little stressed. When then my 8-year-old nephew came running up. Aunt Sally, Aunt Sally. I go, what, Mark? Aunt Sally, you know how when they do that, they have their little heads up. They're just looking you right in the face. Aunt Sally. What? I just love your house. My point is sometimes other people add to our lives. And not that they negate what that 5%, 20%, whatever it is, but they have a way of cutting through because they see a bigger picture. I pray to God that we always know a community of faith that helps us do that, even in the most difficult times, when it's so hard to say, it's too